Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Surface Navy Association's annual conference and trade show in Northern Virginia, where the surface leadership of the United States Navy gathers, as well as other leaders from the sea services, from the Navy, the Coast Guard, as well as the United States Marine Corps. We're a partner with SNA on this effort, and here we are sponsored by Huntington Ingalls Industries, General Electric Marine, L3 Technologies, and Leonardo DRS, and we're honored to have with us United States Marine Corps Major General Dave Coffman, who is the N96, 95, belay my last, sorry about that, sir, for Expeditionary Warfare. I got my wires crossed because we talked to Admiral Ron Boxall earlier today. Wow. Fascinating conference, a lot to discuss. I want to start with Littoral Combat Group 1. Made its first deployment to South America. It was Wayne E. Meyer, the DDG, and then the Somerset, which was an LPD-17. Every couple of years, we learn that the combination of a big deck amphib and something with the pointy end makes sense. I remember the Expeditionary Strike Group concept, which was two pointies and a big deck. Talk to us a little bit about what this pairing brings to the fore, and what are some requirement trims and adjustments that every one of these novel formations ends up driving?
Yeah, great question. So great to be with you again, Vago. So Littoral Combat Group is just, as you said, just a recent version of a mix and match plan to mix a variety of naval assets, Navy and Marine. In this case, destroyer, an LPD, a special purpose MAGTF, and did some work in South America. As you said, we've been there before. I grew up in the 90s really learning a lot of that, where we did a lot of integration, carrier strike groups and amphibious formations, etc. That's back. It's back in our concepts, emerging concepts. It's back because of the compelling need for, under a naval strategy, to be able to do that. In regard to what does that drive you to? Most fundamentally, it drives you to be able to talk and integrate. So for our work, for the L-class, for the amphibious part of it that I sponsor, it's why we're starting at the C5I, at the command and control systems and the interoperability, so you can pass links on a common architecture under a naval tactical grid. If you can do that, then the naval commander, whether that's at a smaller level, as a commodore and a colonel, as a MAGTF battle buddy, up at a higher level, or all the way up to a numbered fleet or above, then you have a variety of tools distributed, which is a distributed maritime operations model, to apply, whether it's apply kinetic activity, non-kinetic activity, or do anything. So the fundamental thing that's driving us back to is to make sure that we have a degree of interoperability and integrated network architecture. So for our part of that, for L-class shipping, that's why our lead tranche for an evolution plan to improve our L-class amphibious warships is the C5I, to make sure that we're networked as part of the fleet to be part of that. Once you get that right, then in naval warfighting, we've always fought, as you say, by mix and match task force. And the Navy has a very mature and high quality model for mix and matching those assets based on what they might bring to the fight. So we need to do that kind of work. That was a great effort, really championed by ESG3, Admiral Pringle, to say let's put some different things together and go do a mission set and see how they integrate. And you'll see a lot more of that. I've done a number of the recent workups with our ARGMUs where we are getting regular use again of destroyers. In fact, Wayne E. Meyer was one I worked with when I was on the West Coast a couple years ago. It was present through much of the workup, available to that Fibron Commodore for the things it had that he did not have on his own ship. So I think it's a great positive development, a lot further to go with that integration effort, but we're on the right path. And again, that's a layman's term, but it's a mix and match approach, which is the way you do naval warfighting.
Talk to us about the Amphibious Ready Group and the Marine Expeditionary Unit. You're looking at new constructs there as well to sharpen that ability to deliver force anywhere in the world in sort of tailor-role packages. Walk us through what the strategy and the plan there is.
Yeah, so I'm advocating a little bit of an overcorrection, if you will. So I've earned my spurs as a Marine Expeditionary Unit level MAGTF commander, and I've done MAGTF operations at levels above that. And my kind of extreme thesis is the era of ARGMU as a primary organizing construct, primary unit of issue, unit of deployment, unit of employment is past. ARGMUs are by doctrine for D minus infinity to D plus 15. They're very, very good forward deployed, forward engaged. they've really made their mark in crisis response. We still need those things. But we haven't really been deploying and employing ARG-MUs in coherent ARG-MU formations in a long time. So even back in my time as a MU commander, circa 2008, 9, 10, 11, we were already moving to these widely distributed or disaggregated formations. Back to the Littoral Combat Group. How do you really do this? The numbered fleet has a variety of assets, whatever the nation can afford for forward deployed, forward engaged. They then composite them for crisis. But where we need to move is to contingency response and preparation for major combat operations. We're not going to do that at ARG-MU scale. We're going to do that up at larger formations that have more than 15 days of supply, that have more senior leadership, flag-led formations, vice 06-led formations. So what I'm trying to argue for is that, and we're doing this again in many ways, a lot with exercises. ESG-2 Brad Skillman going to Trident Juncture. Our work in Dawn Blitzes and Bold Alligators on each coast are up at this scale. That's where we really need to try out our stuff, concepts, equipment, the whole thing, and see, because that's where we're going to fight if we're going to fight in great power competition, and we're going to fight at contingency and major combat operation. Again, not to denigrate the great work we do in smaller, regularly issued formations, and they will still have their place. But you're not going to get the bang for the buck and the high application of your 5th generation MAGTF or the Marine Corps part until you get it out there at the right scale to participate in those type of environments. So.
Do you have any, I know that Fleet Forces Command is working on a major fleet exercise in 20, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Do you want to do something that ambitious? Is it part of what they're doing, or do you have a magic stretches plan for, hey, we got 20 amphibs together in order to be able to do something big?
Great question. So that is under the leadership of Fleet Forces Command and MAR-4Com, the Marine equivalent there at Norfolk. We have a great model really for this with the Maritime Working Group that sets the pathway for the global maritime exercise schedule to make sure we're doing the right things. I think that's increasingly well aligned and collaborative across Navy and Marine for what the Navy needs to get in their fleet exercises, what the Marine Corps needs to get, and what the Marine Corps needs to get that requires high Navy support, like the amphibious operations, mine warfare, and those type of threads. We never get enough of those. And part of the problem is because we don't have the capacity in our fleet, particularly in our amphibious fleet, to both do the day-to-day forward deployed, forward engaged work that we typically do out in ARG-MU formations and still have enough left to mount up a major force under Admiral Skillman's leadership and go to the high north. Now he did pretty good with what we gave him on a Trident Juncture. We've done pretty good in Westpac, in Korea exercises, in RIMPAC and other places. It's a little bit of frustration because that's really where the space is that we need to think and act and operate differently. And the best we can in exercise and experiment at that scale. So we have a pathway for it. I don't have a magic plan. It's fleet driven. Their Fleet Forces, particularly for the Navy, that kind of owns the force generation, force employment space, and has to make those trades. To husband enough assets to do what we need to do at exercise and experimentation and still fill, we're never going to fill the insatiable demand, and that's good. We're in demand everywhere for Navy and for Naval Expeditionary Forces. So, but we've got to meter that demand in order to carve out some space, both to maintain and modernize our stuff, and to maintain and modernize our guys. Right. So they get a chance to exercise and experiment and get better at that higher end of the ROMO where we think we're going to need some particularly improved agility and capability.
What did you like that you saw in Trident Juncture? What you didn't? What's the hey, we got this right, hey, this is what we've got to work on?
Well, Trident Juncture particularly, and this is a big part, I think the Commandant, we just had General Boudreau from Deputy Commandant Plans Policy Operations here, he made this comment as well. It's really hard to get these right because you tend to want to jump into a mission thread, D plus something and do your work. Part of the lesson of Trident Juncture, of course Admiral Fogos talks about this as well. Anybody moved a whole bunch of people to the Arctic anytime recently? Right. It's not as easy as you think. So this is where we believe we get an extra kind of value narrative boost for the parts of the Navy that I watch, because guess how Admiral Skillman and the Amphibious or Expeditionary Force gets to the show? On the amphibious warships. And then we had our challenges with that, to take them into those harsh environments and bang them around a little bit. That is not a minor lesson learned. So getting there is part of the fight. And as the Commandant says, not only do we have to have the capacity to get there, we may have to fight our way there. Therefore, we're going to need ships that are not just trucks to carry the MAGTF, but that are a comprehensive part, back to your opening line of questioning, that are comprehensive parts of a fleet. Amphibious warships and the connectors and all the other pieces that would allow Admiral Skillman, Admiral Pringle, Brad Cooper, and Westpac at CTF 76 with their Marine counterparts to fight that force. Fight to get there, get enough capability there, and then fight it in a distributed fashion aligned to the emerging concepts for how to take on great powers.
It was an interesting thing you said. Your generation of Marine was very comfortable going up to Norway and in very, very cold climate, whereas an entire generation of Marines have grown up thinking that wherever I get deployed is generally going to be just going to be sandy and hot, not cold and freaking freezing and wet as well.
Yeah.
Ideal conditions for a frog, I might add.
Yes,
right?
That's
I just kidding about that. I'll have a reminiscence question if we have time later. Let's talk ship-to-shore connector. The Marine Corps, was just downstairs, and somebody was lauding Commandant Amos for the courage to pull the plug on what was a program that the Marine Corps was kind of emblematic, and there was a lot of passion tied up. Obviously, in the Expeditionary Fighting Vehicle, there's the new Amphibious vehicle that's ACV has already been selected. If you can give me a good deal one of these days on an old Amtrak, I'd love to have one just to drive around on weekends. I'm just kidding. Talk to us a little bit about ship-to-shore connection and getting that balance right between speed. The LCAC is a tremendous vehicle. It's on the faster end of things. Obviously, everybody wants to be faster, but then there are other concepts, and there are other nations that have ideas out there as well. As you're looking at this landscape of what's the best way to get stuff from ships to the shore in an increasingly contested universe, what are the novel thinking that you're bringing to bear here?
Okay. The first thing is it's another area where in my view, I'm almost doing some overcorrection again. My view, we too strongly associated the so-called connector fleet, which you covered, or both our air cushion LCAC and our displacement LCUs, with the amphibious warships with the L-class. We did a lot of the metrics where I have this much stuff on these ships and I've got to move it in these ways, and that was how we did the programmatics to talk about how we needed those. That's not how we're going to fight in distributed maritime operations. What I learned as a MAGTF commander was it was always a little bit incorrect to think we were going to bring it all and fight fully from the sea. The strategy is a coalition strategy. The idea of an inside force is that you're already there. You have some space. You're not fighting your way east to west or west to into bastion areas. So we have to kind of uncork the old model that paced that way. That's point one. So you still need to go ship to shore, but you also need to go shore to shore, or shore to ship in a variety of ways. So I can remember in the mid-90s when I was at staff level, at MU level, where we thought we were going to get out of LCU, for example. We said, why are we still taking these LCUs? We're going to go all air-cooked. Well, from my warfighting experience, again, diversity of capability. This one's different than this one. That's good. Different capes and limbs. So that was true in the 90s, and it was true for the 30 years I've been doing this. Now we're at another inflection point in a way. The opportunity of unmanned, and then so we're looking at a fleet of, and I said I don't even like the term connectors anymore. They're not quite sure what we call these trucks, these things, but we're going to move stuff, air, manned and unmanned, surface, manned and unmanned, and get this, undersea, manned and unmanned, and ashore, manned and unmanned. So we're trying to kind of blow that out to look more broadly and comprehensively at you need to move commodities and you need to do multiple missions. So we're well partnered with our acquisition folks and our program offices, and this is another one where Admiral Boxall and N96 and I are in tight partnership for unmanned surface vehicles, for example. And then we are also well partnered in the N4 shop that's looking at naval logistics, strategic level, I've got to move 5 million square feet of stuff to the theater. Operational level, I've got to set up a ring of sea bases that can exchange commodities and refuel as assets come in and out of threat zones. And then we kind of pick it up where the N4 drops and says, and we've got to move a lot of stuff the last tactical mile or inside these contested spaces. So we need to make some bets on unmanned in that space. We have stand-in surrogates for, I'll use the LCUs, one of my favorite examples. We're going to recapitalize LCU fleet, currently at a 1-for-1, 32 for 32. We've got Vietnam era ones. Guess what? they still work pretty good.
Yeah.
And if you need to move 170 tons, 700 or 800 miles, I got something that can do that. You say, well, that's not too, it wasn't meant to be too exciting. In fact, it's nice if nobody even knows it's really doing it. So what are we going to do? We go back and retrofit that so you can do it unmanned and take it, and then you can, that's an example of a traditional, very basic, cheap, relatively cheap displacement craft that I think still has utility on the battlefield, principally in logistics role. You go to other sets, displacement, air cushion, again, varieties, manned and unmanned or optionally unmanned, and we need to be more creative in applying those. So we're going to try and eat that space up. We still have the validated requirement that you started with to move MAGTF men and material from ship to shore. So we still have that, it's still a valid requirement. I'm just trying to expand that conversation because I think you have that, but that's a subset of the broader approach of distributed maritime operations and distributed logistics and fires and command and control and everything else. So it's actually a very exciting space. So a family of combatant craft, the different sizes, the different places we can go, and really trying to seize the, I think we're right there. I've had a chance to tell the CNO that myself once or twice in regard with Ron Boxall in terms of USV unmanned surfaces. We're there. We're there. I've been around and we can make that happen to do some of that work unmanned. So we're still holding our programs. We have both programs in place for recapitalization, LCAC to ship-to-shore connector under Textron, and LCU now under contract with Swift Ships. So we have the two programs of record. They are making their pace to get there. So I'm not throwing those away and not recommending that. I'm just saying it's not an either or again, it's this and that. And we need to look more broadly at how we're going to fill the space of lots of little things, moving commodities or doing stuff for us in that narrow space.
Marine Corps for a long time has said it doesn't have enough amphibs. The plan now is for 38 ships. You're looking at the Flight 3, LPD-17. I mean, talking about capability, it's an incredible capability and the force likes it now that the teething problems of the ship are behind it. Talk to us about the ship portfolio and how you get there, because if you look at this shipbuilding budget, there's a lot of stuff that's in there, but there isn't enough money to kind of cover all of this. So how are you going to manage to do this in a stair-step function that gets you to that kind of amphibious force of the future?
Yeah, so what I learned from my great coaches in the Secretariat and peers as I came into program and budgeting is it's our task to present an acquisition profile or program that has maneuver space for stakeholders, including Congress, the most important stakeholder that signs the budget, to maneuver. So at our level, we look at the industrial capacity to build amphibious warships, which is at Ingalls, and we show those in the plan as empty spaces, capacity to build. And then we make our recommendation on how we could fill that capacity and how to get there. So as you said, the validated requirement is 38 amphibious warships, of which we are after 12 big decks, LHAs and LHDs, and then we're converting to an all LPD fleet below that. So we're looking for a future of 26 LPDs arranged in flights. LPD Flight 1 is the San Antonio class. We have funded to requirement with the 11th, 12th, and 13th on the way. And then the biggest decision in amphibious warships, probably in the last 10 or 15 years, was to settle on LSD replacement, so-called LXR. Decision is made. It's going to be LPD hull form, so same basic ship, and we call that LPD Flight 2. And that first one is on negotiation now to go low rate initial production for one, which will be LPD 30, and it's the LPD Flight 2. We think that'll be Flight 2 Alpha, or as you say, maybe it's Flight 2 and then we go to a Flight 3. So what we're attempting to do with LPDs is get into serial production to take the advantages of binning your combat systems and all your work, get the cost savings of getting more than one at a time, and get the stability of the build to move out. And in short phrasing, in layman's terms, we're really trading LSD for LPD, moving from 17,000 ton that needs help, that can't operate truly disaggregated, that was not built to an LPD at 25,000 that can do full spectrum aviation, carry its own L form, level 2 hospital, et cetera. So we're really excited about kind of that chart that shows that path to 38. We acknowledge, as you say, that that's not decisions that we make in my shop about the pace to that. We present the work, we try and put together with our PEOs the right high quality ships at a good cost effective price, and then we let the senior leaders make their decision. So the other two complicating factors, it's not just the capacity, it's the capacity times capability times readiness. So we have a lot lot of movement now in the capability, which we talked about in some of your earlier questions. We've got to make the ships better to do what they need to do. And all that is for naught if we can't improve our maintenance and modernization efforts such that it's ready for the fight and not extended into maintenance avail and not where it needs to be. So the math gets bad, and this is the Commandant's lines, testimony and otherwise, and his Deputy Commandant in terms of, yeah, we have 32 ships, I need 38, but 38 with an availability down at 50% is not the math that we kind of started with in terms of what we need. We go all the way back to the line of thinking regarding placing ARG MUs or smaller formations to do forward deployed, forward engaged, and then where's the surge force? Where's the rest of it that comes, and is it capable for the big fight? So.
And look for our interview with Tom Moore. We're going to be interviewing Admiral Moore as well, the NAVSEA commander, to talk a little bit about...
Make sure you ask Admiral Moore about all the work he's doing in the private yards, which do all of the maintenance on L-class amphibious warships, to work on the problem sets there with our great industry partners and pick it back up and perform to plan in that. We've got to fix that problem or everything else really is for naught. Great ship, great capable ship, but can't get it where it needs to go in terms of maintenance and modernization.
Yeah, I mean, that's extraordinary actually in terms of force generation and readiness. It's shipyard availability and spare parts availability that drives your ability to be able to get out there.
Parts in the same place.
You're going to get a hook here in a second. F-35, I have to ask you about that. You're a Marine aviator. F-35 Bravo, the Marine Corps pioneered getting the first service IOC with the jet, forward deployed in Japan, starting to participate in a very operationalized capacity. Talk to us on the shipboard side of this equation, given that that's one of the key game-changing battle integration pieces the Marine Corps has been putting together in this amphibious warfare force of the future.
You got it. So the Joint Strike Fighter, and for the Marine Corps, the F-35B, is the leading edge of the transition into the 5th generation MAGTF. So we've kind of stolen the moniker. 5th generation has a particular meaning in fighter aviation, as you likely know. So, but we've expanded that. The Commandant's done this as well. He will sometimes say, I don't want to bring the MAGTF, I don't want to bring the 5th generation fighter down to the MAGTF. I want to bring the MAGTF up to the 5th generation fighter. For what I do for the Navy Marine team, I use the same kind of phrasing. Basically, regret to inform you and your listeners, we have the 5th generation MAGTF and it's on probably about 3rd generation warships. So we have to do the capability evolution for the warships to exploit the capabilities. The JSF is not alone in that. The JSF is the leading edge of really revolutionary, fantastic capability inside MAGTF, and I would extend that to other forces you would embark, like Special Operations Forces. The Navy has got to catch up in terms of being able to host that on our platforms, exploit it, and integrate it, per our earlier discussion, into naval warfighting. So as you said, the first 5th generation fighters to do their thing on this planet were Marine F-35Bs operating off big deck amphibious warships. USS Essex, who was just, as you can read in the papers, the Essex ARG just pulled back into CENTCOM to cover one of the most dangerous military missions, which is a withdrawal. And apply that capability again as they thought they were checking out of CENTCOM. This is the first due course ARG MU deployment with Joint Strike Fighter embarked. And then ahead of that was WASP in the Western Pacific, CTF-76, Admiral Cooper. And our idea, WASP is a stand-in, frankly, for America and Tripoli, our aviation optimized big decks that I would recommend we put where they can do unpredictable things with unpredictable assets. Back to the discussion of not in traditional ARG MU formations, but in different ways to exploit unique and revolutionary capability. So F-35 embarked on big deck amphibs is a game changer for our numbered fleet commanders and for the GCCs to be able to put them at the point of friction, to put them in the inside force, be able to operate, maintain them, and utilize them. That's what amphibious warships bring you. A sovereign airport, seaport, boat deck, well deck, hospital, C2 spaces, and sufficient C5I, if we get it right, to stand in and deliver that great capability. So we're super excited about that. Watch this space, more to come. So those were purposeful turns about how really Marine Corps led, Navy supported, about how to come out the gate in Iwakuni and Westpac, when to time, a first kind of full run, which Colonel Nelms and 13th MU have done fabulously with Essex. And then to the point of your question, yes, learning a million things about how to do that better. Back to get the interoperability rate, and back to better, get safe and proficient with a new thing. We're always doing that. And then how to exploit it by getting better supporting architecture and just get some runtime so we can figure out how to exploit that capability.
And you liked what you saw from the Essex deployment?
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of great things happening there. There's a lot of beta tests on that. Pulling signal down. We've kind of backfitted with the Marine Procured Common Aviation Command and Control System as an example to better exploit the links and get them into architecture. So we're getting there. We're not getting there left or right in my regular speech the way I'd want to, conceptually, fiscally, technically, and operationally aligned, but that's okay. We'll pick that back up. We'll still work conceptually. In the meantime, we'll surmount technical challenges to make sure we can deliver capability. That's what the nation needs.
Last humorous question. Yep. There wasn't a single person in the room when the Vice Chief of Naval Operations, Bill Moran, was talking to us yesterday, and he talked about you coming into his office and requesting permission to lay down. And there wasn't anybody in the room who was thinking, why on earth would the Stretch Coffman be, what could drive this man to just ask to lay down? What on earth happened that day?
Well, I think the Vice knows what the Vice can do, so he's teasing me a bit because we are, as we say, a non-union shop. So we are across Syscoms, TICOMs for what I work on for the Navy Marine team. I work for SECNAV, CNO, and CMC by law for my portfolio as the lone Marine General Officer or sometimes the lone Marine General Officer on the OpNav staff. So I need friends, and I need them in a lot of places. So the Vice CNO, among many others, has been a great coach. So first session with him was flopping a placemat about amphibious warships and said, help me out, Vice, where are we trying to go with this? And he said, I'm not for you or against you, I want to understand you. To the credit of him and so many of the other admirals in senior leadership, CNO, Vice CNO, and our senior leaders, SECNAV level, they are exploring this space with us. Right. And I can tell you that nobody goes, so Vice CNO has done what he told me he would do. He has been out to sea this part of the Navy and see it work. And that our idea is that should set him up as the chairman of the corporate board that makes a lot of these resourcing decisions to make good and wise choices. I have never faulted someone senior from me, empowered to make a decision. I find that they make the decisions they're empowered to make. It's my job, though, and my staff's job to present them with the best quality data, the comprehensive work, and that's our idea of toward a campaign plane-like approach, to stay on this journey because the United States needs the capability that this portfolio brings. And it's my job to advocate for it, and my great staff is going to do the work with all these other stakeholders to present the case of what you get for those dollars, what you get for that time.
Major General Dave Stretch Coffman, the N95 Expeditionary Director of Expeditionary Warfare. Sir, thanks very, very much. Really appreciate it all the time.
Always a joy to be with you. Thanks so much for the opportunity.